And we should be live. Welcome everyone. I'm just gonna give it a minute until I can see that we are indeed live. Until I can see you guys in the chat. And here we are, I can see you there. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. Oh, you've never heard of pink gin? It's rather nice. Well, there are many different types of pink gin, but it's pink. Everything pink is nice, right? Hi Cynthia, and welcome everyone that just joined. A lot of you have already seen in the chat before going live. If anyone was completely new to me, if you've just randomly clicked on this video, we are live from Windsor. We've got about 5 minutes before to start. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. Welcome Agatha, welcome Catherine, nice to see you here. So we've got about 5 minutes to go. Let me see, 4 minutes to be precise. So if any of you are watching this on replay in the next few weeks or days or months, if you wanted to go straight into the walking tour, feel free to skip the next 4 minutes. So for anyone that's new, just a bit of housekeeping. We are live, so you have the chat. If any of you were watching the replay in the next few months, if you're not watching with the chat on, sometimes I might be reacting to stuff that you might not see. It's normal because this is a live stream. And also because it is live, you may sometimes have some little signal cut. So if you have a mini cut in the conversation and it doesn't make sense anymore, that's why. Hopefully the gods of the internet will be good to us today, but we never know. And welcome everyone that just joined. Hi Barry, nice to see you here. I was in Barry's hometown 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know. In Burnham-on-Sea. Right, before we start, let's try the microphone. Most of you know the drill. I'm gonna tap the microphone 3 times. You should be able to hear that. If you don't, let me know. Let me know in the chat if you've heard the tapping. You might also have heard an airplane. Surprisingly, Windsor Castle is in the middle of a flying pass going straight down to Heathrow Airport. Don't ask me why they've built a castle that close to the airport, because I can guarantee it's the other way around. You've heard it, perfect. Very good, thank you very much. Some of you might have already noticed I've got some dead people behind me. I am indeed in a little former graveyard. Perfect, thanks very much. Let's see what time it is. 2 minutes to go, guys. 2 minutes before we officially kick off. It is nearly 5:30 p.m. UK time. And it's fairly warm today, we're lucky. Well, the sun has it's just gone behind the clouds, but it was very sunny earlier. And welcome, Stefan. Nice to have you along. You hope they're not upright against the dead. No, I think they're very much horizontal. They are underneath me, actually. Just in time. Nice to see you here, Pauline. I'm glad you've made it. Okay, let me gracefully stand up. Hi, Bonnie. I didn't see Bonnie, but I guess you're here, so hello. And welcome, Annie from Slovenia. Nice to see you here. So we've got about 1 minute, I think. Yes, 1 minute to go. Hi, Colin. Welcome. We're waiting until it's officially time to get started. No, it's not time. 1 minute. and it is beautiful today. I'm lucky. I was in Lincolnshire for the weekend again, and it was freezing in Skegness. And it is officially time to go, so welcome everyone. We are live from Windsor. Without further ado, let me flip this camera around and let me show you where I am. So I am in a lovely little park, a former graveyard, as you can see. It's known as Bachelor's Acre Gardens or Park. There used to be a graveyard here, but they've removed most of the grave to put them against the wall. If you followed many of my tours before, you know exactly why they do that. It is because some of those old Victorian graves or headstones, they might be a little bit unstable, and they don't want kids to be playing around and to be injured by a falling headstone. As it has happened, it happened once in somewhere around Liverpool, I think. So that's why they're placed against the wall. It's a lovely little park with a playground and everything. And again, aircraft. It's every couple of minutes because we're so close to Heathrow. But I'm not here to show you the park, although it is lovely. I'm here to show you the statue of a lady that some of you may have heard of. Her name was Elizabeth. That might ring a bell. She had a few doggies. Here she is, the Lady of Windsor. So this is a very informal portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. The statue was commissioned here to celebrate our Golden Jubilee. So it's not new, it dates back to 2013. And it depicts her as she would have dressed, you know, to go out and to go and see maybe horses. Or, so, you know, very informal compared to the statues you might see on a throne and all that. On this one, she looks like anybody else, really. So that's rather unusual, really. The artist is Lydia Karpinska, and she's got 6 corgis. Some of you might wonder what happened to the Queen's corgi. Well, they're still in Windsor. They're with Andrew at the Royal Lodge where he lives. He still lives in the Royal Lodge, although his brother, the King, is trying to kick him off. It's not worked. The King has tried to remove Andrew's security, or to stop paying for it at least. So he would move away, maybe move into something smaller like Frogmore or anything like that. But Andrew is refusing to do so. He seems to be coming into some money. We don't know where his money is coming from. Some claim he's got some interesting relationships with people in Saudi or stuff like that. Anyway, so he's got... What happened with the corgis, really, it's that... welcome Diane, and welcome everyone that just joined. Hi Lethargy, welcome everyone. So yeah, the Queen, when she was starting to age, you know, and she did not want to have any new corgis because she didn't want to leave them behind when she passed away. And after the Duke of Edinburgh passing, when he died, Andrew was a bit concerned that the Queen was going to start to feel a bit lonely. So he decided to get her a few more corgis, and he swore to her that he would take care of them if anything was to happen to her. So that's why the corgis are with Andrew. And Fergie. I wouldn't be surprised if those two remarried one day, because although they divorced a long time ago, they seem to be very much together. Anyway, lovely little letterbox here. You might see the royal cipher, GR. So that's for Georges V Rex. He doesn't need to put the number 5 because, of course, the letter boxes, the post boxes, they were brought into this country under the reign of Queen Victoria. They existed in France before, Although the stamps were invented in the UK, the letterboxes were in France. But they came into Victorian times, so you would never find a letterbox dating back to George the First or Second, Third or Fourth. So it has to be George the Fifth. We are now arriving on Sheet Street. Sheet Street. I know I still have some issues with my long E's on my short E's. Let me show you. I don't know if you can read, but this is indeed Sheet Street. Still don't really know how to pronounce the difference. I think to do a long E you have to smile. So it's Sheet Street. Anyway, this is actually a good spot. You know, if you're planning a trip into London or into England, and you want to see the changing of the guards, well, you know, London is not always the best spot for that because it's very crowded. You cannot always be very close to the soldiers depending where you stand and how busy it is. If you need to come and see it at Windsor, it's every Tuesday, Thursdays and Saturdays, and they come along this street and there's no one here. If you stand right in front of the castle, it might be slightly busy, although it wasn't busy at all this morning. But if you stand here, you could be here at 10:45 to see the new guards coming out of the military barracks that are behind me, or you could be here at 11:25 and you'd have a great view on the guards. Actually, you know what? I was here this morning. I could show you a little video of what it was like. Let me cross over first. There we go. I'll show you the video. Where is my video? There we go. Don't be surprised, it was not the bearskin hats this morning, it was the Gurkha soldiers. The Gurkha, they are all from Nepal, the country of Nepal. It's a very special regiment. They have... what happened with the Gurkha is that they are meant to be extremely brave. And when the British Empire was in charge of India, there was a war with Nepal, and although they had been massively impressed by the courage of those Gurkha soldiers, the Brits won. And in the peace treaty with Nepal, they decided to include a little clause that stated that all the every so often they'll be able to hire some of those amazing Gurkha soldiers for the British Army. So that's why the full regiment is from Nepal. It's the same at Buckingham Palace. This month we've had a lot of the Gurkhas doing the changing of the guards. There's a little say that says, if you say you're not scared of death, you are either lying or you are a Gurkha soldier. And apparently some of them have, you know, in the mountains of Nepal, like any mountains really, you have a bit less oxygen. And apparently some of those Gurkha soldiers have developed a genetic mutation that helps them assimilate more oxygen. So in the same circumstances, they'll perform better than us anyway. So they are very famous soldiers. Anyway, let's go down towards the Long Walk. So that's the street or the walk you would have seen on TV if you've seen any of the royal weddings. But this little street here, Park Street, it's one of the oldest streets in Windsor, and it used to be famous for prostitution. Until Queen Victoria kind of disliked it and cleaned the area. But before that you had a lot of brothels above the pubs. And you see a lovely boot scrapper. So this is usually 18th century buildings. So if you came down from your horse and jumped in the mud and had dirty shoes, you could clean them with those boot scrappers. And if you see There were 2 Georges after Queen Victoria. Yes, exactly, Maud. Yeah. George V and George VI. And one day we might have a little George VII. Well, we should if everything goes to plan. Anyway, this is Black Horse Yard. It is named after a former pub called the Black Horse. It was very much a place with ladies that would be into the sex trade. That's part of the reason why it closed. They've lost their license, basically. And this is a lovely pub as well, the Two Brewers. No kids. They have a sign, they don't want any kids. Right, let me show you the Long Walk. So if any of you saw the royal wedding on TV, so that's the one between, well, we had 2 actually, not far apart. We first had Princess Beatrice, we first had Harry and Meghan, and then we had Princess Beatrice and her husband. So if you've seen Harry and Meghan's wedding on TV, you would have seen this street was packed with people that were hugely enthusiastic about the union. I mean, they used to be a very popular couple, those 2. They've screwed it all. Now they are extremely unpopular, at least here in the UK. But yeah, that was a huge event. And if you've seen the Queen's parade as well, funeral parade, that's when they came in from London. So the Long Walk is about 2.5 miles, 4 kilometers. And if you went straight down, you'll end up on Snow Hill. Snow Hill, there's a statue of King George III up there. It is allegedly the spot where King Henry VIII in the 16th century waited for the announcement of the passing of, the execution of his second wife, Anne Boleyn. He did not go down there to actually watch it live, but he was waiting up here for the news. Hi Satyam, welcome Sheen, welcome everyone that just joined, and let me show you Windsor Castle. So the castle itself will go around. We're not allowed to get in, obviously. The king is not here today, which is not surprising. He never, he doesn't really stay here much. He's probably at Clarence's house if he was in London today for the Chelsea Flower Show. Or he could have gone back home to his Palace of Highgrove. That is a palace very, very, very dear to him. Now, let me try to pop the camera in between the railings so you get a decent, view of the George IV entrance. Most of what we see of the palace today actually dates back to George IV. He's done a lot of refurbishment and work into the palace. Hi, Michaela, nice to have you along. Right, bear with me. I'm just gonna pop the camera back out. Oopsie. There we go. So yeah, the king doesn't spend much time here. William and Kate, I should say Catherine, apparently the Princess of Wales, she much prefers to be called Catherine than Kate. I understand, people got so used to call her Kate, but as she becomes queen in many years, hopefully, but it might be fairly soon, we're not going to say Queen Kate, are we? It's going to be Queen Catherine. So we have to get used to call her Catherine and not Kate. And so yeah, they live in Adelaide Cottage. So that's part of the Crown Estate here in the greenery around the castle, but it's not in the castle. Let me show you. I might have a little. Yes, I'll show you a little map over here. So that's That's the castle. So we were a second ago in the right, bottom left. When was George the Fourth? Laurie is asking. He was he was after George the Third. He would have been the uncle of Victoria. He was a quite chubby monarch. Right. He's also done quite a lot of work at Buckingham Palace as well. You still find Nicola. Yeah, well, she's the Princess of Wales. She's Catherine, Princess of Wales. But yeah, a lot of the thing is, Kate also has some bad connotations because there was a journalist that called her Weighty Katie. You know, in the years at the beginning, when they were starting to date and kind of slowing things down and stuff. So it sounds much more respectful to call her Catherine. But yeah. So they live here at the moment, but that'll be interesting to see what happens in just over a year now when the little George goes to a big school, because it's pretty much official that he's not gonna go into Eton College. So that'll be interesting to see if they then move back into London. But anyway, we'll talk about Eton in a little while. For now, let's cross over to see the statue of a guard. So this is a lovely monument that was actually sculpted by a gentleman that was himself once part of the military. It is an Irish guardsman. It dates back to 2011. The Irish Guards, they're part of the Royal Household Division. So those are the guards that would be guarding the monarch in front of the palace. So in front of St. James's, Buckingham Palace, or Windsor, that's where they stand. It's obviously a great honor to be guarding the monarch, but for them it's not their favorite position. Of course, it's a bit boring. The artist is Mark Jackson. He was himself part of the parachute regiment when he was on a holiday in Spain, and he did a parachute jump. Not on the job. He was just enjoying himself, and he took a funny turn, and he had a terrible fall. When he landed, he was like, "Oh, I think I'm all broken," and he was. It took him a year to recover, and as he was able to rejoin to come back at the army, he never felt like he was the same as before. So he decided to leave the army, go into Florence to train as sculptor, and he's done the sculpture himself. Prince William was actually the one that unveiled it, as William was himself into the army. He was in the Blues and Royals, I think, and then he was he was a helicopter driver, so he would have been in the RAF. Now, letterbox fans, we've got a couple more here. So that's one of the early Royal Mail aviation ones. So in the 1930s, at the beginning of aviations, you had the blue letterboxes for the air mail. It's no longer in use, but you see GR. So again, George V. That's his cipher. And the next one is E2R, Elizabeth II Regina. The R is for Rex or Regina, being Latin for king or queen. So this one is not too old, but we also have this amazing postage machine for stamps. It's no longer in use, of course, but that's quite cool to have kept it. There's a VR post box in the Lake District. Yeah, there's still quite a few. Even in London, we still have a few. Well, even today, we'll see a couple actually. This is an ancient well, so that's quite cool. And of course, a lovely telephone box. They are listed, the telephone boxes, they're part of the heritage anyway, so we shouldn't be removing them. And we have a flag of the king. Let's see if it's open. No. Let's see what else they've put. Is that the king as well on a mask here? Yeah, I think it's the king. It's hard to see, but I wonder who's put those decorations on. It was probably for the coronation weekend. There's a crown as well down here. It's funny that they've... Oh, that's an old telephone as well. I didn't see the telephone. That's cool. That's nice. Private. Oh, I wonder what happens if we scan the QR code. What website we end up on. Anyway, let's go and take a look towards the castle. This part here, those were the stables here. So that's and that's also a spot where Nell Gwynn allegedly had some apartments, because this street here, it's St Albans Street. It is named after the first Duke of St Albans. The Duke of St Albans. Some of you might remember how he got his titles. It is because, well, allegedly, there are two little stories. We don't know how true they are, but, you know, the King, Charles II, he had a lot of mistresses. He had allegedly 18 illegitimate children. And it is said that one day he came to visit Nell Gwynn to see his little illegitimate son. And he was a toddler at the time, the little boy. And allegedly the boy ran away, and Nell went, "Come here, you little bastard." The king was outraged. How dare she call him a bastard? And Nell apparently said to him, "Well, you've not given him any titles yet." So that's exactly what he is, a bastard. So that's how he would have created the Dukedom of St Albans. There's another story where allegedly Nell was holding the baby over her window, and she said to the king, if you don't give him a title now, I'll drop him." So we don't know if they're both true or which is true. But yeah, his grandson, Audrey Beauclerc, is the one that was, when he was the Duke of St Albans himself, he owned a bit of the area, and he actually owned some of the brothels as well. Now, this is a beautiful little church here. Some of you might remember last time I took you inside, because they have a lovely painting of the Last Supper. Oh, it looks like it's still open. We can try. It usually closes at 5, but let's try to go inside. Amazing. I did not expect it to be open, so little bonus. I'm gonna zip it as we are in the church, and I'll explain as we go out. So it's the local parish church, but they have a little treasure. There we go. So that's an amazing painting that has nothing to do here. It was originally in St George's Chapel. Let's go out and I'll explain. So yeah, the painting was originally in St George's Chapel, you know, the chapel inside of the castle, where the Queen is now buried. And what happened is, when we had the Civil War, the parliamentarians took over, with Oliver Cromwell, and they took over Windsor Castle. So the priests and stuff, they hid a lot of the church treasure. They actually they rolled up the painting and they buried it away for many years. And then eventually they found it back. They put it back into St. George's for a few years, and then eventually George III decided to gift it to St. John the Baptist Church, the local church here. So that's how it ended up being on display over here. But it's quite an amazing treasure for such a little parish church. It dates back to, I think it's the 1600. It was the painter at the court of Charles II, Francis de Clane, that painted it. Now let me show you the Guildhall. So this is Queen Anne's husband on this side, the Prince of Denmark. And let me show you the Castle Hotel. The Castle Hotel, they used to be called the Mermaid Inn, and eventually they rebranded themselves, they renamed themselves the Castle Hotel after getting a royal warrant from the palace. And what happened with the Castle Hotel is that, after the Civil War, there was a bit of an issue with coinage. Because when we executed Charles I, the king, they also burned down a lot of the coins because they did not want, the parliamentarians, they did not want to have any coinage in Latin with pictures of the king. So they did the Commonwealth coins. And after the restitution of the monarchy, Charles II, the government struggled to produce enough coinage. So the business owners, like the Mermaid Inn here, they struggled to give change to their customers. And eventually, so the gentleman that owned the Mermaid Inn, his name was George Pennington, he decided to mint his own coins. He called them the Pennington pennies. And this is not a real one, this is actually a deco they have in the hotel. The last surviving Pennington penny is now at the British Museum. But he minted those little coins with a mermaid, and of course he was a trusted businessman in the area. So local businesses started to accept it as well. And many businesses across the country started to do the same. So that's, and eventually they became illegal eventually. Now, before we go much further, let me show you another Victorian one. I think this one is a replica. They did a few replicas in the 1980s. But you see VR, so Victoria Regina. I'll show you the original one actually in a few moments. But for now, let's go into the Guildhall. So the Guildhall, that's of course it was like a trading association. Although this was used as the town hall as well for a while. It is said to be attributed to Sir Christopher Wrens, the architect. It's another architect that started it first, but the guy died, and Christopher Wren finished it. And originally, they did not want any pillars over here. Well, Christopher didn't. There would be pillars on the outside here, but not in the middle. But the local authorities, they told Christopher, no, we need pillars. We need pillars. And he was like, no, I know what I'm doing. There's no need for pillars. And eventually the authorities insisted so much that Christopher Wrens decided to produce some pillars. But if you look at the top, it's not quite touching the ceilings. So he had the last laugh. Well, if you want to be very pedantic, they have some, they actually have a metal bar inside. So technically it's kind of touching, but not quite. The Guildhall, it's also where we had a famous wedding in 2005. Well, famous, maybe not the most famous. The most famous was actually Elton John and his partner David. But another wedding was that was fairly well celebrated was, of course, Prince Charles and Camilla. They married here. Not the most famous or the most popular event. Apparently, some of the taxi drivers complained because the streets, at least the street over here, was closed for the wedding. I mean, it was already fairly low key, you know, it wasn't at St. George's Chapel or anything like the other royal weddings. But the taxi drivers complained. They wanted some money, compensation for the road closure and stuff. So, like if it didn't bring them any business, but more the other way around. Now let me show you one of the most amazing buildings over here. This is the Crooked House. It might not be that obvious from here, but if I step back, you'll see a little bit better. It's not very straight. What happened is when they built the Guildhall, they had to destroy a few houses that stood here before. On this side of the Guildhall, by the way, this is Queen Anne. Queen Anne, you've probably heard of her. She's the queen that had 17 pregnancies and no babies that survived, or not long enough to be the heir to the throne anyway. And after that, they had to go and fetch some cousins in Germany to get the throne. So that's why we said the royal family is originally from Germany, because they are. And anyway, so to build the Guildhall, they had many buildings destroyed. So they knocked down a few buildings, and then the owner of this one here was like, "Hold on, you've knocked me down." And so that's in 1687 that they did that. "You've knocked me down, but you didn't build anything. I mean, I could have stayed." And he did some legal actions, and eventually he won. So they had to rebuild his building, and when they built it back, at the beginning of the 18th century, apparently they wanted to do it very quickly, so they used some wood that was not fully dried yet. And as it was fully built, the building went like, so that's why it's a bit crooked today. Now we're actually on the shortest street in the country. This is Queen Charlotte Street, named after George III consort. It is only 51 feet long. So tiny little street. I'll turn around to give you another view of the street in a moment. Yes, Tish, it's been... no, I think the last time it was already a wine shop, but before that it was empty, and before that it was a jeweler. They keep changing businesses. See, from here it's even more obvious how not straight it is. So at the moment it's a little wine shop and wine bar. So yeah, I think last time it was already a wine bar, but the time before that it was empty. The rent businesses are coming through. Some of you might know Liz from the Isle of Wight. She's one of my followers. Our company used to be selling pearls in there at some point. Anyway, let me show you another view of how little is the street. And let me show you another pub. The Prince Harry. Now, the pub used to be called the Three Things. It's actually quite an old pub, but in 2018, the landlady decided to rename it after the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. I'm not too sure whether she's still very happy with her decision today, because of course Prince Harry is not exactly the most popular royal anymore. They've just published, did you guys see it? About a week ago, they've just published some statistics about the the royal family's popularity, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have gone straight down. When a few years back, like 15 years ago, Prince Harry was the most popular royal, well, right after the Queen, really. So it's quite a fall from height. But, you know, after his interview last week, 2 weeks ago now, don't know if you saw that, his horrible BBC interview, where first he kind of revealed that his dad might not be around for very long, and he also accused them of ICR, and welcome everyone that just joined. He also very bluntly almost accused them of wanting to kill him, because I don't know if you're aware of the private security thing. So because when he left the working royals, he's no longer entitled to have his security paid by the taxpayer. He actually does. He has to give them 28 days notice, that's it, but they do protect him anyway. But he's taken the government to court 3 times already. He's the only royal that ever did that. And now he's lost, but of course he's losing. He's never going to win this fight. And well, first, he wouldn't be that much at risk if he had not published in his so-called autobiography how many Taliban he's killed in Afghanistan. I mean, no military ever does that. Now he's claiming he doesn't feel safe in the country, but he goes to Nigeria, Colombia, some of the most dangerous countries in the world. And a couple of days later, after the horrible interview where he kind of played the victim, he wanted to be like the new Diana, then what do we see? We saw a picture of him in London ringing on random doorbells, so allegedly looking for his friend. But he would have, when you have a security team following you around, if you step them down, if you tell them not to follow you, why could that be? It's because you're doing something dodgy. I mean, my guess is that he was looking for a drug dealer. So he's desperately wanting the taxpayer to pay for his security, yet he's not very scared. He goes alone, wandering around the streets of London, knocking at random doorbells. Apparently, one of the cleaning lady opened. She didn't even recognize him. You're looking for your friend, you don't have their number. I think he's lost, he had already lost a lot of popularity, but since last week, I think he's even losing more of our respect. Let's see what Laurie's saying. Yeah, even after his book, I was already done with him. Like, even in a normal family, you don't say stuff like that about your siblings. Anyway, I'm not moving on because I wanted to show you that one. Some of you might know what this is. You know, those little bricks here in the corner. Do you guys know what that is? Exactly, Sarah. That's a corner, not two piece. We have quite a few pubs around here, and if you have a nice little corner, you might be tempted to urinate in there, but because of those little bricks, that would splash back at you. So that's quite convenient to avoid the funny smells. Anyway, let me turn around to show you one of the oldest pubs around here. Oops, sorry. No longer a pub today, it is a Chinese restaurant, but according to the sign, 1425. It is allegedly haunted by the ghost of a Quaker. Like the ghost is looking like the cereal man, basically. And let's go down my favorite street over here in Windsor, Church Street. It's just super cute. With those little bow windows, almost Harry Potter style. Now, let's get back into Nell Gwynn. Allegedly, she also lived here at some point, and that's why there's a portrait of her on that establishment there. So Nell Gwynn, she was an actress. You'd have to remember, to go back to the beginning of the 17th century, being an actress was not exactly a very good job, you know. It had been only a few years that they had actresses on stage. Before that, it was only men, you know, because ladies couldn't know, they didn't know how to read anyway, so how could they learn their lines? And there she is, Nell, on the little painting. And you'd have to be at the time very witty to be an actor, because, you know, the theater was not exactly like today, where people stand quietly and watch the show. People were wild. If you stood in the pit, you might be urinated up against, or you might have a lot of drunken people jumping on stage. So the actors, they had to be pretty much like the stand-up comedians today, you know, be very good at putting people down. And there's a lot of boys coming out of the palace. They look like Eton boys or something. Straight ahead, you see those little boys in uniforms. I don't know what they're doing there. Anyway, so yeah, Nell Gwynn was very, very funny. She was known as Pretty Witty Nell. And, you know, the king had many mistresses. Apparently one night the king was meant to have a night of pleasure with another mistress, Moll Davis. And it is said that Nell Gwynn actually wanted to avoid that. So she gave her laxatives so they wouldn't have such a good time. And I don't know why this one is everywhere. That's the one from Pocahontas, from Captain Radcliffe. Anyway, yeah, Nell Gwynn. It is said that there are some secret passage under the castle to come down here that were for the kings. Yes, they look like Eton boys. Don't know what they've done at the chapel. There might have been some kind of a service. I've seen a lot of Eton boys coming out of Eton earlier, so it must be the same ones. Anyway, so yeah, the secret tunnels, personally, I don't buy it anyway, because they've never found them. And also, the king's affair with Nell was no secret. Why would he have to go through the secret tunnels to go and see his mistress? You know, there was absolutely no secret there. All right, let me show you the flag. It's not windy enough. But on that pool, excuse my finger, but there's a flag. That's where you check if the monarch is here or not. It's not windy enough, but earlier it was the English flag, so the king is not here. Not surprising, he hardly ever comes here anyway. Well, he never really stays here. He does come here for events, but he doesn't spend much time here as his mother used to. Queen Elizabeth II, she spent a lot of time here. You know, people think Buckingham Palace was her main residence, but really, I read that the Queen spent on average 55 days a year at Buckingham Palace. So out of the full year, it's not that much really. And she, with COVID and stuff, she isolated here at Windsor. They created what they called Her Majesty's Bubble. 21 members of staff were allowed to serve the Queen through the COVID lockdowns. And after the Duke of Edinburgh, her husband, passed away, she decided she was a bit too old to go back and forth. So she stayed at Windsor. She had not slept at Buckingham Palace since March 2020, apparently. Anyway, there's a ghost. There actually are a couple of ghosts around here. There's allegedly a full horse carriage that comes down this street before a monarch passes away. He would have been the doctor of King Charles II. There's not been any sighting in the last 100 of years, but there's that one. And there's another one. Apparently there was a guard that once stood as a sentry behind those gates there. And he saw 3 silhouettes walking straight towards him, coming in. And he was like, "Halt, who's there?" The silhouettes didn't reply, and they were coming straight inside. And eventually he was like, "Halt, stop, stop." They didn't. So he fired his gun. And apparently there was a huge search all across the courtyards and the palace. They never found anyone. Obviously, the soldier was told off, but it is said that it might have been a ghost. Well, 3 ghosts, really. Maybe they were there trying to convince the little George to go into Eton. I doubt it, Larry. I think, and I actually respect the Princess of Wales for that. I think they don't want to send George into Eton because they want their 3 children to go to the same school. And Eton is only for boys, of course. So they were considering Marlborough School in Marlborough. But apparently, this is only speculation, but last January, the Princess of Wales and William were actually visiting some schools in North London. So they might actually be considering London schools as well. So that'll be interesting to see where they go, because of course, in terms of security, the school is going to have to make some huge efforts, of course, but it'll be an amazing boost for their reputation. Like Marlborough School, I think it's 59,000 a year. So, you know, it's still very fancy establishment anyway. Right, let's take a look at Queen Victoria. Victoria, she's the one on the monument here. Victoria, she became known as the Widow of Windsor because after she lost her husband and cousin, Albert, she kind of withdrew from public life, and we didn't see much of her for a while. And she dressed in black. You know, she's actually the one that started the fashion of dressing in black for mourning periods. And she sorry, I just ran into my customers from earlier. So she was always dressed in black, and she actually used to she tried to communicate with her dear Albert. You know, the Victorians, they very much believed that they could speak to the dead. They believed in ghosts far more than we do today. I mean, if you look at the Victorian press, ghost stories were reported all the time. And, you know, they at the time they had just invented the telephones. So you could pick up your phone to talk to someone in Newcastle. Why not talking to the dead? So apparently Victoria and Robert Lees, a little medium that was only 13 years of age, they tried to communicate with Albert. And apparently they did. It is said that the boy came up with a message for Victoria using a nickname that only Albert would have known. So, you know, interesting. Now, the statue was placed here at Victoria's Golden Jubilee, so 1887. And, you know, no one believed that the Queen was going to live another 10 years. But she did. So when came her next Jubilee, Diamond. I'm always confused with the Jubilees. You've got silver is 25 years old, ruby is 40, I think. Diamond is 50. No, golden is 50, diamond is 60, sapphire is 65, and 70 is platinum. So, you know, 10 years later, they didn't know what to do this time for the Queen. So apparently they placed a little canopy over the statue. Let me show you. So that's the little canopy they added, but it was so ugly they eventually had to remove it. And there's something else they did for the Jubilee in 1887. It is this beautiful train station and shopping centre. So that was also created to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. Now let's go straight down towards the train station. Now, when the first train came into Windsor, the local population, they didn't want any trains. They just did not want them. Because of Eton School. Eton College it's probably the most popular or the most highly valued school in the country. So they did not want those boys to be distracted by London. They did not want those boys to be able to go down to London and go to the theatre or go to the brothels or whatever perversion there might be in London. So they didn't actually want the train, but eventually the train came anyway. And I'll show you the station. There actually are 2 stations in Windsor, and they're not very far from one another. So you have to be careful, if you come to Windsor by train, you'd have to be careful you go back into the right station. Because I used to do, not really anymore, but I used to do some tours here where I'll take people down from London, and I would do a little walking tour of Windsor, and then I'll take them into the castle, but I wouldn't guide into the castle. I'd leave them there, so they'll have to make their way back on their own. And how many times do people go to the wrong station? It doesn't even look the same, but they go to the wrong one anyway. Let me show you. Yeah, there are some good mediums out there sometimes. Well, or at least some people that seem to actually be able to communicate with the dead, but who knows? Yes, I heard, Maud, that they went to the flower show. Now, so this is the train station over here, so Windsor on Eton Central. And here we've got a replica of the locomotive that took down Queen Victoria into Windsor. Oh, thanks ever so much, Linda. That's very much appreciated. This is, of course, the royal crest with the lion, and this is not a horse. It's a unicorn. The unicorn is for Scotland and the lion is from England. Unicorn. English is a funny language because unicorn technically should be called the unihorn, because a corn is a horn in French. So the English language has stolen half of the vocabulary from the French, but not the other half, which is a bit odd. So it should be called the unihorn. Anyway, with the motto of the Knight of the Garter, Dieu est mon droit, honi soit qui mal y pense. So that's what you'll have still on a British passport. In French still. It means God is my right, shame on who thinks evil of it. It's old French, only. You know what, for about 30 years, I was actually convinced it was Dieu est mon droit, maudit soit qui mal y pense, which would make more sense because maudit is cursed. So Dieu est mon droit, maudit, cursed who thinks evil of it. That would make sense, right? And not that long ago, like maybe 10 years ago, I told someone, maudit soit qui mal y pense, someone that spoke French, and they were laughing their ass off, and I was like, what did I say? They're like, it's not maudit, it's horny. I was like, no, it's not horny. I mean, and I was like, no, not horny, oni. I was like, what is oni? It's not French anymore. No one says oni anymore, but it means, or it used to mean shame. Anyway, I told you I was going to show you the original penfold. So this is the original one. So it would be, I think the penfold model, it's 1866 to 1876. They see all those little deco. It's lovely, but it was actually too expensive to produce, so they stopped it. What is the station that takes you down to Wimbledon? Sarah, that would be the other one. That would be Windsor on Eton Riverside, I think. That's the train going down towards Waterloo and stuff. So that would be the same as the one I'm taking tonight. Now, when they created the Penfold model, they had the design so that's John Penfold that designed it. They produced the first one, lovely, hexagonal. They loved it, but they had forgotten the aperture, so that was a bit useless. Anyway, let's go back to the main road. So I guess I didn't really explain the Knight of the Garter. Being a medieval king was a very dangerous job. You could be plotted against, you could be killed, of course. I mean, a lot of those kings used to go into battle. Anything could happen to you at any time, you know. So at some point, King Edward the Third, he decided to have 24 very brave and dedicated knights that would protect him whatever happened. And there was a ball where the king was dancing with the Duchess of Salisbury when she lost her garter on the dance floor. And the king did not want the Duchess to be mocked, so apparently he picked it up and he stated "Honi soit qui mal y pense," shame on who thinks evil of it. And that's how he created the Knight of the Garter. It is still the highest chivalric order today. They have the ceremony every St. George's Day in April, 23rd of April. You might have seen it on TV. That's when you'll see the king and all the knights with black robes. A lot of the knights are actually members of the royal family, like Anne is one of them. Prince Andrew is still one of them. He doesn't really turn up to the ceremony anymore, but he's still one of them. I think Churchill was one of them as well. You have an athlete that's one of them at the moment. Historically, you could have, some of the illegitimate sons as well, like Henry Fitzroy, you know, the illegitimate boy of Henry VIII was one of them. And at first they could be ladies, then they cancelled the ladies, and then they brought them back. So now ladies are there as well. Now this is the Curfew Tower. It dates back to the 13th century. Curfew, it's not to tell you that you've got to go to bed, but it was to tell you to turn your candles off. So someone would be shouting there from the top to remind you to turn off your candles to avoid the fires. And they also used to have a dungeon, and sometimes they took some prisoners there. And it is said that there's a little secret gate as well, so if there was a siege, they could escape, or also get some kind of deliveries through that secret gate. Yep. Now let me show you on this pub. That's a decent Wetherspoons. Although I'm not a huge fan of Tim Martin, that's a nice Wetherspoons because they have a nice garden. Anyway, this is Edward VII. So that's Queen Victoria's son. He was a bit of a playboy king. He was known as Edward VII, but his name was actually Albert, because when they access the throne, they choose their names. It does not have to be their first names. Queen Elizabeth II, it was her actual first name, but it doesn't have to be. Edward VII was called Albert, George VI was called Albert, Queen Victoria was called Albert. No, just kidding. She was called Alexandrine. Victoria was her second name. So they do not have to go with their first names. And that's why really, until a few years back, we did not know for sure whether Charles was gonna choose to be called King Charles. Because Charles, it's not a massively popular name for a British monarch. We had Charles I, we chopped his head off. We had Charles II. He was not massively popular himself either, because he had spent about 10 years in France, and when he came back he was a bit too French. He had taken a lot of the French fashion, a lot of the French arrogance. that's fine, I can say that because I'm French. So not very popular either. And of course he had those many mistresses. So that's why some people had speculated that the king could have actually chosen his second name. So he could have chosen to be called King George VII. Some say that the king did not, because then his grandson, the little George, would have had to be George VIII. That's not a very popular number, I should say, for a British monarch. We had Henry VIII, the one with the 6 wives. We had Edward VIII, the one that famously abdicated for Wallace Simpson. So not a very popular number. The king decided to stick to his first name. He could have chosen his third name. That would have been quite cool because that is Arthur. So he could have chosen to be called King Arthur. He decided not to. To be honest, after 74 years of calling him Charles, it would have been very weird to suddenly call him Arthur, but he could have been King Arthur. Anyway, this is the Theatre Royal. It is, we actually had 3 different Theatre Royals over here, different buildings. I mean, it was burned a couple of times. At first, when they first opened it, it was only in the summer because they did not want theatre here. They did not want to distract the boys from Eton. So the place could only be performed in the summer at first. And there was a tragic accident in the 1845, I think it was, to be precise. There was a lady, 63 years old, Sarah Hume. She went to see a play, but she fell off the balcony. She died straight away. Would you believe they removed the body and they kept on with the play, like if nothing happened? They could be quite rough, those Victorians. And it is allegedly haunted by the ghost of a little girl that would have died in a fire. Anyway, across the street, this is Prince Christian Victor. He was one of the many grandchildren of Queen Victoria. I think she had 42 grandchildren. She was known as the grandmother of Europe because she married all her kids to different princes and princesses in Europe. Christian Victor, he died in South Africa. He was in the army. He was also a very good cricketer. Sorry, I've lost you for a sec. Hopefully it's better now. I was saying both of his parents were a bit weird. His mother, Helena, so Queen Victoria's daughter, she was addicted to opium. And his dad, he window tax, blocked up windows. But yeah, it has the reputation to be cursed. Apparently there's a family, the Cheshire family. And then suddenly the worst possible things started to happen to them. One daughter got, I'm going to move because the management from the hotel are looking at me. I'm guessing they're the management. They like me talking about the curse. So yeah, the daughter, she fell pregnant with an illegitimate boy. The boy died, and then she lost her mind. And then the daddy, he kept getting some mysterious illnesses. Some stuff looked like food poisoning, but some of them seemed to be diseased from different countries where he had never been. And eventually they decided to sell it, and then some terrible stuff happened to the next owner as well. It's when the building stood empty for a while, when eventually it was bought again by 2 old sisters in the 20th century, and nothing happened to them. Well, not that we know of. What about the dad? Oh, sorry, did you miss the dad? So he actually had to give up his titles at the time of George V. George V, it is the king that choose the name of the royal family, because they used to be called Saxon, Coburg, Garter. But at the beginning of the 20th century, when people started to be a bit wary of Germans, he changed the name of the royal family to Windsor, to sound less German. So he literally named it after Windsor, after his favorite palace. And he also decided that Christian Victor's dad should give up his German titles. So the dad, he had, I think his name was Christian as well. He had a glass eye. He had lost an eye, I think hunting or whatever. So he had a glass eye. And most of the time, he'd wear the right color, but he had a collection of glass eyes. So he'd be at a dinner party, and so he would have two blue eyes, and he'd go down to the loo and come back with one blue, one brown, just to confuse people. So apparently, yeah, he used to love playing with his glass eyes, and yeah, interesting character, really. So we are now on the well, we often call it the Eton Bridge, but I think it's not its actual name. It goes down to Eton. We are gonna try to go down to Eton, but some of you might remember last time I did that, I had some signal issues, and also I got kicked out. So we'll try see if the signal is with us, because I can't really stand in front of Eton anyway. I'll be kicked out. I've actually been this morning, and the security seem to be the same, so I cannot pretend I don't know. But we'll try. Now, see this little, excuse my finger, but those little islands, they are known as Eyot. It's spelled Eyot, you know, E-Y-O-T, but it's pronounced Eyot, so that's a little island on the river. Most of them actually belong to Eton College. It's on one of them that a little pupil called David was caught smoking cannabis. David Cameron. Anyway, those little Eyot, the Eyot, really, that spells Eyot. That gave the name to Eton, because actually this part is actually on an island as well. If the signal stays with us, we'll see a little stream on the other side. So technically that part of town is on an island. So Eyot and Tongue, it's a settlement in Old English. So Eton actually comes from Eyotton. Anyway, that's where you have, of course, the famous college. We are going to try to go. I don't know whether the signal will be with us, because last time I did this tour, I had a bit of signal issues on this side. Although I have changed my phone since, the internet supplier is the same, so finger crossed. If the signal doesn't stay with us, we'll probably finish quite soon, because there's no point going all the way if I can't even show you the front of the building and the signal doesn't stay. But first, let me show you a little pub down here. It is said that, so it's the Waterman, you know, the blue pub straight there. It is said that when the plague arrived in I think it was the one in the 17th century, the basement was used as a little morgue, really, to put the bodies for the time being. Hanged. It was that strict, because they didn't want the Queen to suffer the plague. Now, let's try to go into Eton. So it's of course a very famous school. I think it's about 102,000 students. About 50,000 a year to study at Eton. Boys, boarding school. Queen Elizabeth II, when she was younger. I've just lost you for a sec, so I'm just going to be repeating what I've just said. So I was telling you, the pub here is known as the Eton Mess. Now it's an Eton Mess. It's a dessert that is. Well, you know what? Let's go back on the bridge, guys. If the signal is gonna go all the way down, because at the moment where the signal gets better, then the security is gonna tell me off. So there's no point. Let's go back on the bridge. I'll tell you a bit more about Eton, and then we'll leave it there. So, can you hear me now? Oh, I guess not, because the numbers have dropped down quite dramatically. So I guess a lot of you have given up. I'll just go back on the bridge where the signal is good to say bye-bye. So Don't know if you can hear me quite yet, so I'll wait for a sec so I know the signal is better. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me now. You can hear me, perfect, good. So apologies, I'm not gonna try to go any further because there's absolutely no point if the signal is bad. So yeah, Eton School, it's of course a very famous school, but it has had a lot of drama as well, or scandals as well. The first one, the first recent one, was actually in the 1930s when there was an American actress, Tallulah Bankhead, maybe even 1920s, maybe 1928, maybe. She was an American actress. She had moved into London. She was very famously bisexual and a bit promiscuous. She was doing some shows with some drunken ladies on stage and stuff. And she was accused of having some sexual relationships with some of the boys at Eton. 6 of the boys were expelled. And then the MI5, the domestic spies, decided to look into it. And they actually proved that, or believed that 5 of the boys had indeed had some relationship with Tallulah. So that was a bit of a scandal already. Then they had, in recent years, they had quite a few. Well, 2005, there was a teacher called Sarah Forsyth. She actually accused the management of bullying, and she was an art teacher, and she said that she had been asked to produce some of the work for Prince Harry, because he had to pass his A-levels to be considered for Sandhurst, the military school. And so she claimed that she was asked to help him cheat, basically, to do the work for him. So that was a bit of a scandal as well. Then 2015, that was brilliant. I mean, I think it's funny. It's probably not funny for the victims, but there was, a lot of the boys that had applied to join the college. Apparently, they were admitting maybe 70 or whatever, and they had accidentally sent an email of instead of sending the rejection to 400 of them, they actually sent, "Hey, you've been admitted into Eton," just to send a minute later, "Oops, I'm sorry, that was a mistake." So that was a bit embarrassing as well. And much more recently, I think 2022, there was they invited Nigel Farage for a speech at the college. I don't know why, and they had invited some girls from local schools. Now, you'd have to remember that those boys don't see many girls, apart from their sisters or their friends' sisters, because, there's no school. It's a single-sex school, unless they do theatre. So if they go to theatre or drama lessons, then they'll be mixed with girls from different schools. And apparently, through the speech, when the girls arrived, they were booed, and some of the boys were doing very misogynistic comments. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that actually influenced Kate Middleton's. I say Kate, it's Kate and William, but their decision not to send little George at Eton. Personally, I think it's about time that they consider taking girls as well. If it's one of the most reputable schools in the country, it's not fair. It's not fair if girls don't have an equivalent. Now, I probably should say a bit of positives as well. No wonder why they don't want me to stream in front of the college. But no, I mean, it's a very prestigious school. And of course, it has educated a lot of our prime ministers, Boris Johnson, David Cameron. I think 20 in total of our prime ministers went to Eton. So a prestigious place to study. They were also accused by some left-wing politicians to have some deals with Oxford, that with the same grades and the same background, many more of the boys from Eton were. Not all the boys from Eton are rich. You have, at any given year, you have 70 King's Scholars. So they are selected with their grades and their background, and the king actually covers the cost of their education. I think it might be a bit segregated though. I think they might be in their own house. They have 25 houses. So it's a bit like Harry Potter, you know, you get into the school, you get placed into a house, and then you belong to that house. So it's basically like in Harry Potter with the sorting hats. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. I'll flip this camera around to show you my face again. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. Sorry I wasn't able to take you down to Eton, but I expected it. That's what happened last time, so at least we've tried. Thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you along. If you want to see a bit more of me, next Monday I'm taking you to Inglemells. It's gonna be interesting because it's a boring location, but it's actually so boring that it's interesting. It's in Lincolnshire. It's right next to Skegness. Thanks, Catherine, and thanks, Catherine. It's always great to have you guys. So yeah, next we're going to Lincolnshire again, and after that, the week after I might redo London Way of Death, and after that, interesting, I'm taking you down to the French Riviera. Thanks, Pauline. My sister is getting married next to Saint-Tropez, so I'm gonna do a tour of Saint-Tropez and hopefully a tour of Marseille as well. It's a bit complicated because I'll have so much luggage to carry in Marseille. It's a bit tricky to do a tour at the same time, but I'd really like to take you down to the Vieux-Port and all that. So I'll try to make it happen, and yeah, because I'll be doing the photos at the wedding, so I'll have camera gear and all the clothing as well, because so yeah, I'll have to be carrying everything with me, so it's going to be a tricky one. And I don't know if she's still here. I'll tell her you said congratulations. Yeah, thank you very much for coming today. If any of you dropped me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, I don't see them live in the chat, but it's very, very much appreciated. It's really thanks to your generosity that I can keep doing some tours and doing more research and all that. And sorry, I cannot see. Thanks, Annie. Sometimes when the name has a white background in the picture behind me, it's hard for me to see the chat. But thank you very much, everyone. If any of you were completely new to me, if you've made it that far into the video, you probably want to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on the fun next time, because they're very easy to miss, those lives. If you subscribed and if you clicked the notify me bell, then you'd get a little notification when I go live, because otherwise you'll end up watching the replays, which is good as well, but it's not as fun. You know, it's nice to be there in the chat and being able to interact in the chat with us. So yeah, if you wanted to make sure you can join the live next time, you might want to consider subscribing. It's the easiest way. And yes, thank you for the flying pearls, and thank you for anyone supporting me in general. It's amazing to always to have you on board. Anyway, thanks for coming. Have a great morning, a great evening, a great lunch, a great night, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And hopefully I'll see most of you next Monday. If not, I'll see you in the next ones. Bye bye. Have a great one. See you soon.